ისეთი გარემოა ბუნება ადამიანები დაწნარდება თავისთავად. თორე ქართველ ადამიანის საფიქროს არ გამოვლებს არაფერი.
Hi and welcome to the SohoLIFF Spotlight. I'm Liz Farahadi and I'm very, very excited to be joined today by Nick Sherlock, who has a fabulous documentary. I have been butchering the title of it, so I'm going to let Nick introduce his film.
Alice in Saktartvelo.
I would have said it like that, obviously. So, thank you so much. Firstly, for making such an important film and for joining us here to have a chat about it today. So for everyone here watching, without giving away too much, could you explain what your film's about?
Well, really, the film is about Russians in Saktartvelo, or Georgia. Saktartvelo is more of a local name, or maybe Georgian name for the country. And the film is about the migration of Russians that crossed the border from Russia into Georgia and that are now living there, and the effects of this migration for life for the Georgians.
How did you find out about this story? Because it's a very local thing.
Yeah, so it is very local, and it's funny you use that word to describe it because that's often the word that is fed back to me. And a part of it being so local, I think frightened me a little bit when bringing it to the Western audiences, because I think without a lot of context, it's very hard to ingest this film as someone that is not from Russia or Georgia or Ukraine or any kind of post-Soviet country for that matter. And my engagement with Georgia really started after I visited Georgia as more like a traveler. The first time I visited Georgia was the beginning of last year, somewhere there. And it was really at the height of this Russian migration that had occurred. And I noticed, okay, this city is changing. This place is in a crisis. And it was pretty crazy to observe as someone who does not come from this world, and as someone who knows very little about the history of Russia, the history of Russia's, shall we say, like imperialistic tendencies in all of these smaller post-Soviet countries. And when I returned to England, I was still pretty, I felt quite moved by what I had seen. And I came back to England and I tried to sort of relate to people here about what had happened or what was going on. And there's just very little comprehension I feel, in the West of the true effects of this war in Ukraine and the true effects of what's going on outside of the battlefield. And so I decided I needed to return to Georgia and fulfill my research, complete my film, and bring something back to the West that really inspires this or changes this problem of Western comprehension when it comes to our understanding of places like Georgia.
I mean, it's fascinating because watching it, it was just like, oh my God, this is such a huge thing for people to be dealing with on so many levels. I mean, how did you approach such an important subject matter into a short film? Because you managed to get the point across, but how did you go about doing that?
So that's a great question, and it's good to hear that your impression of the film was that you gathered like a kind of rounded image of what's happening. I wanted the film to feel like a vignette almost, and as a documentary filmmaker, you have a responsibility to represent the people in which you're documenting in a way in which they want to be understood by the rest of the world, right? And this is actually a very easy rule to follow, but a lot of documentary filmmakers get it wrong. And for me, I think I just went into it with maybe the right intentions, and I went into it actually almost wanting my own relationship with Georgia. And I think the friends I made and the people I interviewed sensed that in me, and they opened themselves up to really beautiful interviews.
Absolutely. I mean, you constructed the narrative for us to find empathy for everybody. It wasn't,
that's it,
because
right?
it's not black and white, is it?
That's it. It's funny, for us, our positionality is interesting because we don't really have skin in the game here. We're not Russian, we're not Georgian, and that's the same. The same goes for me, right? But the response I get when I show my Russian friends that film, they say, "Oof, Nick, it's quite critical of Russians in Tbilisi, but yeah, it's great. We understood everything, and we understood the references you made to these Soviet left behinds, to blah blah blah." And then my Georgian friends say to me, "Oh, Nick, it's not aggressive enough. It should be more critical of Russians." And I think that is an interesting response, and it's evidence that, okay, this film is working with something relevant, but something that's alive, right? And it was hard to distill that vignette of a place and of a people into 12 minutes, but I'm happy to hear you feel it was a success.
You have. I mean, how did you find these stories? Were people keen to talk, or was that quite difficult?
So...
Like to get their trust, how was that?
Yeah, I needed to build trust before the interview, and that takes time. And I think what I'm quite proud of in this film is that I really respected time as I don't know, like a resource, because it's tempting to just arrive, go to a place that looks very different to the world you're from, and just to wave the camera around and to say oh, look at this, and to just frame things in a way that really exoticizes the space, right? Because it is very different and it's very alive. But I didn't have that attitude when I went to Georgia. I took a lot of time to almost become a local in Tbilisi, and in doing so, I made incredibly valuable connections and friends, both Russian and Georgian and Ukrainian, and so I would say the biggest factor in actually gathering very, very human, very, very heartfelt responses from interview subjects would be time. It would be the time I put into those relationships and to understanding my subject matter before actually conducting the interviews.
Yeah.
You could call it homework.
Well,
Maybe.
Preparation. Yeah, if you
Research,
don't prepare, you prepare to fail.
There we go.
So when you've done all these interviews, how difficult was that to then go into the edit room? Because obviously you're still making a film. You've got to make it so that people can watch it. But is there a pressure then to
feature everybody's story? Because there's a little bit of something special in almost every interview you conduct. And as someone that was there, it was very challenging to edit. And again, as someone, I was the person that made the film, that conceived it, and so to edit it was very challenging, because you now feel connected to everything that you shot, and you lose yourself a little bit in this process, and you become a bit of a mad scientist in that you've got this timeline, and you've got hours of really, really important material, and you want to feature as much of it as possible, but you need to be almost technical in the way that you cut your story out of these interviews. And that's challenging when you feel that there's a lot of important information that you've missed. And I really did let myself into this world of just I let my work really consume me, and I embraced this mad scientist Dostoevsky gene, and I followed almost like every impulse I had when I was in Georgia. I wanted, like, I would find a set of old abandoned Soviet buildings, for example, and I decided I needed to film these, and I wasn't sure why. Like, I knew I was looking for something in the way that I was filming them and in the way that I was collecting material. But at that point, I was still searching. I didn't actually have a result yet at the end of every day. And I really allowed myself to continue this search. And it took me to all parts of Georgia, and it took me out of Georgia and into Ukraine. Like, a part of what I thought was that, okay, I now understand this, like, Georgian condition, right? This looming threat of invasion that Georgians feel, and now I want to go even deeper, and I want to understand the true effect of the war in Ukraine. And so I followed this waypoint that showed up on my map, and I went to Ukraine and I interviewed people in the same way that I interviewed people in Georgia, and there were these very meaningful interviews that I had conducted in Ukraine, filming people just like the people that I had shot in Georgia. But in the end, those interviews did not even make the final cut. And that's okay, because this work in Ukraine has its own place now in a retrospective of work that I've shot.
So that's another film, a next film you've
exactly,
got coming. Yes.
That's another story and another film. But editing this was a challenge, because I had to say to myself, you know what, Nick, for the sake of this version of the film, that work that you shot does not need to be here. And one thing that really helped was having a co-editor.
Yeah, but it's really incredible to hear that, because so many directors, they have their films and they would have them for about 20 hours. It's like the editors, the director cut. But you've done this beautifully, and it was exactly the right amount of time, and it's got a really strong message, and it's fabulous. I mean, what's your plan for it now?
My plan for Alice in Saktartvelo? Well, that film has had an interesting effect on my career, in that the film itself has started some really, really amazing conversations with other industry
Brilliant.
professionals that have led to meeting new people that have been turned out to be very valuable contacts within the industry. The film itself inspired a need to continue searching and making in me, and it really kick-started, I think, this process of meaning production in film for me. Before Alice in Saktartvelo, I had only shot TV commercials. And, when you speak about a TV commercial to someone, the conversation's very short and it ends very quickly.
Yeah.
But when you speak to someone about a film that you shot by yourself in a Georgian and Russian-speaking country, those conversations tend to be a little bit more meaningful.
So, I mean, what a fabulous journey. This is just amazing. And what you're speaking there, I suppose that's the power of film festivals as well.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
We are so excited to have you here, and you've got to watch this film. It's a really important film and it's done brilliantly. So make sure that you get along to watch this in January 2025, and we cannot wait to see you and see it on the big screen.
Yes.
Thank you.